The story begins with a boy named Kureshi Itsuki sitting in his classroom. He has experienced a lot of bad things because of his eyes, and because of that he always tries to avoid others. It was the reason for his continuous effort to avoid other people. He used to be discreet and serious to avoid any dangerous situation. On a sunny day, he was hiding his face in a wall to avoid other students, and after a few moments, he tried to make sure that they had left. Kureshi Itsuki was sitting alone in his class when his classmates were discussing the place of the next class. Since it was scheduled to be held in the audiovisual room, a student was asking someone to hurry up so that they didn't miss it. Our protagonist was wondering if it was the girl named Komikai, who was scary, distant, and disobedient. She used to be always alone, and nobody knew what she was thinking with her dangerous looks. There was rumor everywhere that she had some unlawful affairs with grown men, but Kureyoshi wished those to be wrong. Komikai was also taking another route to school, which made Kureyoshi curious to know about her. Since there was no use of thinking about Komikai, the boy got ready to go. He had come back to reality only to realize that everyone had left the classroom. Only the girl, Komikai, was there, almost leaving for the next class, and he managed to stop her and inquired where she had been. He panicked while she asked about everyone's whereabouts, but somehow informed her about the next classroom. Komikai understood that it was the audiovisual room, thanked him for the help, and stepped out from the class, but noticed a strange gaze. She looked back with anger, which was enough to scare Kureyoshi that he decided to not get involved with that lady. He was terrified and wanted to just forget about it. The scene then started the next day when Kureshi was taking the same route to school, and he noticed Komikai, which vanished the thought instantly. The boy kept looking at Komikai from behind, realized that she was taking another route again, and also noticed a different expression than usual. Kureshi was wondering about the destination, which was making her late to school often. He understood that it was stalking but couldn't manage to control his curiosity, and started following her. He had decided to leave the place immediately if he found something shady, like a kissing scene. If she was found with some dangerous-looking person, then also he thought to run away. Kureyoshi was following the lady, trying hard to not to get noticed by her and wondering about his next decision if there was nothing else. He had not finalized his plan and kept going. He stopped for a second, thinking about the pretty long walk, and he had no idea if there was someone there. It was the bank of River Kandagoa, where he was after a very long time and wondered what Komikai was thinking. The place was far away from his school, which made him think about returning back, but it would have made the whole trip pointless. He looked at his phone to check the time, which was 8:31, and lost track of her. Komikai had taken the stairs and he could see the other side from there. Kureyoshi was devastated because if he could not find her, it would be a waste to go there and start to look for her. After some moment of panic and vivid search, he had finally noticed that girl sitting and stretching her body. She was enjoying herself peacefully, lying on the ground, which made Kureyoshi almost scream, but he put his hands on his mouth to keep it shut. Komikai noticed someone, wondered who it was, and was shocked to find Kureyoshi there. Her mouth was wide open in shock, and Kureyoshi decided to run away, but started yelling in panic. The rush proved to be a wrong move, and he fell on the ground so hard in front of Komikai. The girl looked at him, eyes wide open, and wondered if he was still alive. Kureyoshi somehow managed to answer that he was not dead but looked terrible. Komikai couldn't stop giggling to notice that, which made him question if the situation was funny. After a moment the scene changed to the two sitting on the ground. Kureyoshi inquired why she was skipping class, but Komikai asked if he was also not doing the same thing. Being there at that time, Kureyoshi tried to explain how it was not his intention, but when Komikai asked him to check the time, he was terrified. It was already 912. The first period had already started, and she asked if it was not a bad thing to be absent without leave. Komikai asked sarcastically if he didn't know that already, considering him stupid, but Kureyoshi was thinking if the school would contact his parents. She didn't understand why he was getting frustrated over a small thing and asked what made him so scared. Kureyoshi explained how his parents would scold him if they came to know about him skipping the classes. Since everyone was in school, he also thought he was in school and was panicking about the scolding. Komikai was looking sad, asked if he was not tired of the routine, and expressed how it was getting impossible for her to follow. She had decided to forget about all that, lay down on the ground, and asked Kureyoshi to look at the sky with empty mind. The girl was happy, very excited to enjoy the freedom, and mentioned how she would just close her eyes to focus on the surrounding noise. When getting bored, she suggested Kureyoshi try it, as he also had skipped class, and it would be the same in either situation, if he tried it or not. Komikai and Kureshi were lying down, keeping their bags as pillows. The boy commented how it was interesting to notice that just by changing his perspective, he found the sky looked so different. He had never thought about those things earlier, but the time was passing as usual. He had started thinking about school, how everyone was on their routine, and felt a sense of superiority. Komikai came to him and asked if he was not satisfied and started looking at him with a strong gaze. She asked if it was strange that a lot of things were coming into his mind, and stated how she had also experienced the same things before, like thoughts about parents, school, and the stares of others. Kureshi was feeling uneasy, realizing that her face was so close, and somehow agreed to her with a panicked voice. The girl suddenly jumped into his stomach, kept her hand at rest near his shoulder, and looked at him with aggression. She mentioned that the guilty feeling was something amazing to feel while skipping classes, and asked Kureshi not to feel special. The boy was clearly terrified, unaware about the surrounding, and she stated that from that time, only the two of them would know about that secret place. Kureshi had no option rather than agreeing. She promised to keep some other things to keep as a secret, namely his skipping class, stalking her every move, and the indecent way he looked at her. While they were having the talk, a phone rang, and it made Kureshi so furious to wonder who was calling him. He looked for his phone in a rush, but Komikai informed that it was just her alarm, which was a great relief for the boy. The girl noticed how he had checked his phone with a weird face to thank God, and it made her laugh. She repeated his words, kept laughing hard, and called him funny for freaking out, but he didn't understand what was funny there. After that, the scene changed to a different day, when Kureshi was late to school, and he noticed Komikai sleeping on the desk. With speculation, he opened a paper which was there and wondered if it was a letter for him. In the paper, Komikai had suggested skipping class again, which freaked Kureshi out, and he got anxious about his future school life. It was another day when the scene starts with the school. Kureshi was sitting in his seat when the teacher announced to end the class and asked the student who was on duty to collect the printouts later. The boy was thinking about Komikai as she was absent for 2 classes, and he concluded that she might be skipping classes. As the day was clear, he felt grateful for getting a chance to study peacefully, but suddenly noticed her through the window, which freaked him out. She called him to the terrace, asking what he was doing in their precious break time. The girl was sitting at a higher altitude, drinking some juice when Kureshi trespassed to the place. He was terrified to see her there, sitting recklessly, and inquired what he wanted, suggesting that she should go to class instead. The girl agreed, but she was clearly annoyed with Kureshi's plain reaction about the situation. Since the girl had not told him anything, Kureshi suggested going back to the classroom, but the girl yelled, mentioning a cat. Looking at the sky, Kureshi tried to look, but when he didn't find anything, he said it to her while thinking how strange and like a landmine she was. Komikai clarified that she was referring to the clouds, and it made Kureshi nervous, and he stated that he had no idea about it. The girl showed him some clouds of the shape of an airplane and a lion with excitement, but Kureshi agreed with her in fear when questioned. When Komikai noticed that, she interrogated why he was replying perfunctorily, but the boy denied in panic. The girl softly called him by name and asked what he did while not studying, but the question confused Kureshi. He inquired why she asked that suddenly, but Komikai demanded only the answer. As she was curious to know, he mentioned reading manga or playing games, while in response she asked if he used his phone for that. Kureshi said most of it, but the interrogation didn't end there. As she further asked about the kind of games he played, Kureshi wanted a break from her, but didn't dare to tell it to her face and just mentioned some horse racing games. Komikai was excited to know about it and changed her sitting position, which again stole his attention, even though he tried to not look into her. The girl informed how she was also playing the game and asked him to add her. Kureshi didn't want to, but had to agree in fear and kept staring at her. The girl again called him and stated that she knew about the type of manga Kureshi read, which made him look back at her, all of a sudden freaking Kureshi again. Komikai jumped from the height, and he noticed her white underwear. After the landing, she aggressively moved towards him, while he was yelling and stepping towards the back. Komikai said that Kureshi liked manga where he couldn't look at it directly and had to see it secretly, and the revelation forced Kureshi to shout out loud. She pointed her fingers in Kureshi's chest, mentioning about his interesting reactions, and said that it was obvious to guess from the way Kureshi looked at her. Komikai looked at him directly, called him a pervert, and it shattered the world for Kureshi. When he realized that she knew it, he closed his eyes in embarrassment, could not look up, and wondered when she knew. The girl calmed him down by saying that it was okay and demanded to hand over the money he had. Kureshi yelled when he understood that the girl was asking compensation, mentioned how he only had 2,000 yen, and started apologizing repeatedly. After transferring the money, Kureshi was sitting next to her in a panicked mood, but the girl asked to listen to her carefully next time. He asked Komikai if it was alright to exchange contacts with him, and she responded that he could erase it if he didn't like it. Kureshi tried to explain that he didn't hate it, but it was his first contact outside his family, and asked if she was really fine. The girl kept mentioning that she would not mind even if he deleted the contact. While mentioning how it would be more convenient to call him unlike the previous method, he wondered if it was the reason, but Komikai noticed something, asked the boy to follow her, and headed towards a corner. At that very moment, a person entered the place, angrily yelling if they didn't know that the place was prohibited, but found no one. He started searching, wondering if the tip he got was wrong, but Komikai was successful in hiding at the right moment. She almost pulled Kureshi, pushed him in her laps, and mentioned how they were barely safe and instructed to keep quiet. Kureshi didn't have any scope to utter anything, as he was pressed down just after climbing the ladder and was experiencing the softness of Komikai's chest while having no idea about the events. The two were above the terrace while the teacher-like man was yelling, asking them to come out. Komikai knew that they would need to get separated before the teacher noticed, but Kureshi couldn't see anything due to the dark. The man was standing right under them, not realizing the students were hiding above, and still mentioned how the place was prohibited for the students. Kureshi was busy sniffing the pleasant smell, while Komikai was planning the escape, and the inappropriate action of the boy infuriated her. The tension between the two attracted the attention of the teacher. He looked back instantly, but somehow she quickly managed to grab Kureshi and hide again. The teacher felt like there was no one and considered it as a false alarm. While leaving, the two were barely safe, but somehow Kureshi landed over Komikai, grabbing her chest. He was freaked out to realize it, apologized to her, and immediately got ready to get off, but the girl asked him not to do it with that face, looking at him with admiration, and said that it would make her sad. Kureshi could not believe it at first, even though she was smiling broadly, and wondered if it was a lie. Before he could assume more, Komikai requested him to close his eyes, which made Kureshi more confused, but she asked him to do it quickly. On that day in the dark terrace, Komikai had his first kiss, and she tickled his nose, which made Kureshi yell in pain. The girl thanked him for going there with her. Mentioning how it was more interesting to slack off than usual, Kureshi welcomed her. While he was still in immense confusion about the girl, which he couldn't understand, since the next period was about to start, Komikai mentioned about returning home then. It was a holiday. Kureshi had no school and was enjoying the quiet, peaceful day for some time, thinking about some troublesome errands, which he usually got at that time. While walking, Kureshi stopped by a vending machine, bought an orange juice, and wondered if he was doing the right thing or not. Komikai was sitting in a park, watching her mobile, and she noticed the boy. When he was passing by, she yelled to ask where he was going, which made Kureshi irritated to see that girl there. He explained about the errand, still trying to avoid his gaze, telling how he was forced by his mother. Komikai was still on her phone, commented that it might be tough for him, and Kureshi took a seat with her. He asked about her, still pondering if he would get swayed by Komikai, but she replied coldly that it was a secret. Kureshi's simple juice was turned into usual slacking, but he waited for some reply from the girl, but she was not properly ready to tell her story. She didn't have any problem telling him, but demanded Kureshi to commit to listening until the end and asked if she should start talking. The boy was panicking as usual, told that it was all right without starting, and kept thinking about what she was planning. The time was flying, he was getting late, wanting to leave that place, but Komikai asked if the juice was some new flavor. After noticing it while slurping, Kureshi said that he wanted to taste it when he saw that for the first time, but his face turned weird after realizing how he had made a blunder for choosing that. The girl was looking at him while he was making faces before she suddenly stood up to buy one juice, as she also wanted to taste it, and inquired from where Kureshi had bought it. He informed how he had bought it from the nearby vending machine, but tried to stop her before leaving. Telling how the juice tasted bad, Komikai said she understood it by looking at his face, and it was the reason for her wish to taste it, which made no sense for Kureshi, so he offered her the juice he had instead of wasting money. He suggested Komikai drink his juice, and after that she could decide. Handing the juice towards her with an embarrassed face, announcing it was his final say, Komikai took it, mentioned how she didn't like receiving it from others, but decided to have a mouthful of it. Asking if Kureishi was really fine with it, he looked at her, confirming his willingness to share and asked her to drink all of it, if she wanted. When she started slurping, he couldn't resist his urge to see her expressions, but to his surprise the girl called the taste normal. Admiring the bottle of juice, he was still in confusion. When she returned the bottle, thanking him and kept wondering if that was all, he tried to open it. But she asked if Kureishi would not drink it, mentioning how she had already asked him if he was fine. Komukai moved forward towards him, asking if he knew about indirect kissing while touching her lips white, further making Kureishi panicked. He couldn't handle it anymore, started panicking and decided to drink the juice anyway. The girl said that it was all right, telling how she didn't mind it, but Kureishi handed the juice back to her. He was trembling at that time, and Komukai couldn't stop giggling after watching that, asking what was wrong with him, considering him a strange and unusual person. While she was laughing hard, Kureishi mentioned how he didn't want to hear that from her, but she kept talking about how no one had ever thought that the serious person sitting next to her was such an amazing person. Komukai thanked him for accompanying her, even though he was on an errand, got ready to go back and wished to see him later. After she left, Kureishi kept sitting, rethinking about the whole scene, and looked at his surroundings before opening the bottle to drink the leftover juice. He didn't notice Komukai standing behind him while he was slurping the juice and started shaking when realized her presence. Kureishi tried to explain, but she just thanked him for the earlier juice, handed him a new juice and mentioned how she forgot about it. She should not have bothered to buy it for him, but when he said that, Komukai with a firm look said how she didn't always feel good about receiving things, and it freaked Kureishi again. While hugging from behind, she suggested slacking off again, said how it was good to pass the time and left. He didn't understand why she mentioned time passing, wondering why she phrased her words like that while remembering how she had asked him to listen to the end. He was already late, got a phone call from his mother, and had to apologize for being late, agreeing to go back home immediately. Kureishi was heading towards his school when a sudden rainfall stopped him, with no sign of stopping at all, making Kureishi late. He didn't have an umbrella and remembered how his mother had suggested he take it. Predicting a rain, being a teenager, he didn't listen to her advice. She just asked him to take care after that. While he was pondering about the situation, thanking for not getting wet at least, Komukai noticed him and called. She was wet badly, smiling and wished him a good morning, but Kureishi mentioned how it was not good at all, and noticed the underwear she was wearing inside the skirt. Komukai asked if he was okay while Kureishi covered his eyes, trying to save his image by not giving Komukai hints about what he was looking at. The girl asked if he could not see the rain getting stronger, but he just nodded while looking at his phone screen. He was panicked to think about missing school, considered running but couldn't as he didn't have an umbrella. Komukai looked at him in confusion, asked what made him worry that much, and he mentioned how he would need to hurry for school. The reaction on Komukai's face was weird, making Kureishi question it, and she asked if he didn't know how the rain was a great thing, even though she didn't consider the rain to have anything to do with whether they go to school or not. Mentioned how it was okay to not go to school and asked Kureishi's opinion on it. He had no option rather than agreeing with the sight of her chest in front of him, and said yes. Komukai was murmuring about the kind of skipping that was allowed and how it was not enough skipping like that, but Kureishi didn't understand anything she was saying. He felt better to know that he was not the only one not going to school. Glad that Komukai explained it, but he was shocked to hear a huge sneeze, since that kind of high-pitched voice was not usual from her. He looked back to find Komukai in a dangerous look. It was enough to make him scream. He promised to not tell anyone and started jumping in fear. Until he realized that she might catch a cold, Kureishi asked her to wait, searched something in his backpack, remembering something, and handed her his jacket, suggesting Komukai wear it. Her eyes were teary, which confused him, and he wanted to forget it. But she jumped into him to thank. Her actions were surprising, but when she commented how the jacket was clean, he got more shocked to hear the rude statement and yelled. Komukai then asked him to turn around, mentioning her desire to change her clothes, which made Kureishi curious again. He yelled while looking to the other side, asking if she was not going to wear it above her shirt. Komukai didn't want to do it, as the jacket would get dirty that way, and started putting off her clothes. Kureishi didn't understand if Komukai was seriously thinking about changing clothes there and considered it better to wear the jacket above her clothes, but she didn't stop, and commented how it was heady. Kureishi could not resist his urge to think about her, pondering if she was really changing, and wondered how much things he would get to see. If he looked back, somehow he controlled himself, remembering how Komukai was teasing him already for that behavior, and she also finished changing by the time. After wearing the jacket, she apologized for making him wait, commented how they had the same cloth size, while flaunting the right-fitted jacket. Kurashi was looking at her weirdly, but she mentioned how the jacket was feeling tight around the chest area, which embarrassed him again. He didn't know why Komukai told him every detail, but when she thanked him, he asked her not to mind it. The girl sat next to him to tell that she had undressed her clothes and underneath, and mentioned how she was not feeling cold anymore. Her statement made him think about the things that were under his jacket. Ignoring Komukai talking about the rain, she was smart enough to guess his imagination, went close to him, and asked firmly if he was curious about it. Even though Kureyoshi tried to deny it, she didn't fail to shock him by starting to unzip the jacket. Exposing her beautiful cleavage, he was confused, asked if she was serious, and she responded with a yes, following a close move towards him, asking Kureyoshi to see her breasts. The boy was embarrassed, tried to stop her from showing more, and yelled to treasure herself more. When the two were pushing each other, her jacket got unzipped, exposing her breasts to him, which was unexpected for both. Komukai was not happy, while Kurashi tried his best to explain how it was not his motive, rather he wanted to stop her. It was too much explanation for Komukai, so she called him an idiot. Asking to stop apologizing, she used a safety pin to work as a zip to hide her skin and suggested going to the convenience store. Kurashi was shocked, asked if she would not go to school, but she wished for a coffee to drink, and Kureyoshi had to agree to it. A teacher yelled at Kureyoshi as his grades were declining recently and asked about the reason. He looked at Komukai without taking name, but the teacher then started screaming at her, mentioning her tardiness, absence, and even cutting classes a number of times. Komukai apologized and said she was not feeling well, but definitely it was a lie. The teacher then warned how it would affect their advancement in class, and ordered them to do some tests in the remedial class after announcing the detention and makeup class. The teacher said that they can open their textbooks if there is a problem they can't solve and ask them to start doing. Kurashi tried to solve the paper, but he was ill at ease to see the question. He figured out that he would not be able to solve it even if he opened the textbook, and started panicking. Most of the questions were out of his understanding, but Komukai was solving everything fast. Kurashi was shocked at her speed, wondered how she was doing it without even looking at anything, and tried if he could also do it. Since the teacher had some meetings to attend, she asked to take their answer sheets to the staff room after finishing. Kurashi again tried to concentrate, thinking that he would not be able to finish that, but Komukai finished everything already. He looked at Komukai, who was stretching her body, and she suggested slacking off again. It was amazing how her attitude changed so fast, but Kurashi was freaked out, yelled at her asking if she was serious. He reminded her about the remedial class, so she left for the toilet and asked if he would go with her. Kurashi rejected politely, and while she was gone tried to focus on the study. Suddenly Komukai appeared from nowhere, pointed to a wrong answer from behind, and it made Kurashi scream again. He looked at Komukai, who was opening an ice cream bar, and started eating. She promised to resist her urge to go out, inquired about Kurashi's remedial, and started finding the mistakes, which make him ponder about the girl again. Komukai started teaching him the right way to solve those problems, asked to erase the mistakes, and came so close to her. She was so close to Kurashi, which was very distracting for him, but suddenly her ice cream dropped on his sheet. Kurashi screamed to see that. While she started apologizing, but she further moved on to explain to him the sums. The girl was really good at teaching, which made it easy to solve the paper, and Kurashi thanked her for the help. By that time, Komukai was sleeping on the desk, which was surprising for Kurashi, who started thinking how brave she was. He thought that she would ask him to slack off, but instead she started teaching him how to study, and he was unable to keep it up with her mysterious aura. After that little thought, he decided to take those sheets to the staff room and tried to pick them up, wondering if he should wake Komukai up. While doing that, he suddenly hurted himself, and the eraser fell on the ground, just between the legs of Komukai. Kurashi bent down, slowly crawling to take the eraser, wishing Komukai not to wake up, but he was amused to look at her white skin. He tried not to look at her, wanted to take the eraser fast, and started moving even slowly. Komukai suddenly woke up only to find him under her legs, which shook Kurashi up. He tried to explain how it was a misunderstanding, and he was just trying to get the eraser back, but the girl inquired what he was looking at while talking to her. After some arguments, the two went to the staff room where the teacher praised them for completing the work and mentioned she knew that they would do it with trial. The teacher suddenly stopped when she noticed the ice cream stain on the sheet and asked Kurashi about it. It smelled like chocolate and ice cream, so she inquired if Kureshi was eating while answering the paper. Kureshi tried to deny it, but the teacher was not in a mood to listen and permitted only Komikai to go, which frightened the boy. The teacher demanded an explanation from him, yelled asking what he thought about a remedial class, and complained about his inconsistent behavior, which he was showing recently. The incident made Komikai happy, and said that they were even from that point on. It was another day while Kureshi was checking his body temperature and found it to be 38.8 Celsius. He had been studying until nighttime on some days, which cost him health, but having no other option to stop his grades from lowering, he had to do it. His attendance was also questionable because he was skipping classes with Komikai. While he was walking with those thoughts in the condition of fever, he started feeling dizzy, but somehow Komikai held him at the right moment. But he knew his problem started after getting involved with that mysterious girl. After holding him, Komikai took Kureshi to his home, where his sister was tying her shoelaces. She introduced herself as Kurashi's classmate. But the girl was amazed by the beauty of Komikai and noticed her brother after a moment. He was almost unconscious, which made the little girl scream. And Komikai explained how he was walking unsteadily and looked pale. His sister thanked her for taking the trouble for him and also bowed down to apologize, and suggested to get Kureshi to his room. Komikai gladly got ready to take him there, for which the sister felt about it, but Komikai said that it was fine and informed how she had already contacted their school. She mentioned about getting late, telling how she would need to return soon, and looked at the sister with a strong gaze. The little girl then asked Komikai to take Kureshi to his room and got ready to go to call their mother. She asked the sister not to worry, but his sister kept pondering about the beauty of Komikai. After taking him to the room, the girl also gave Kureshi some medicine and juice, but he was still sleeping unconsciously. Komikai stood next to him, looked at his face for some time, and decided to sit down near him. While unconscious, Kureshi was dreaming about his teacher scolding him for the decline of his grades, asking if he was studying properly. Even though he claimed to study, the teacher kept mentioning about his low scores and stated how he was actually doing it for Kureshi's sake. Kureshi didn't mean to be disobedient, but due to his defective eyes, the teacher thought that Kureshi was not listening and understanding and asked if he was trying to mock him. Even though Kureshi denied the allegation, the teacher kept slapping him and the poor boy screamed to stop. After that, he thought about getting good grades by studying to avoid dangerous situations which derived from his eyes. He suddenly wondered about the topper, only to find that it was Komikai, and heard some people talking about what kind of person she is. Kureshi remembered how Komikai was beautiful with peculiar eyes, who was always alone, showing no interest in other people. She was just like Kureshi, but since she was good at studies, the perspective of the class was different for her, which made Kureshi believe that he would feel better if he could also become a topper. Komikai looked back at him, asking if he was not tired of thinking like that, and mentioned how she was tired. Kureshi only noticed how her hair had become longer, and heard Komikai asking about slacking off again. Kureshi was screaming in the bed after he woke up from his unusual dream and found Komikai sitting next to him. The beautiful girl was reading a book and informed him how she had called school about his condition, while Kureshi kept lying in bed. He mentioned how Komikai has always been on the top from the first year, mentioned how his grades never went up after a lot of hard work. He inquired why she was still skipping classes, even after staying at the top. Before Kureshi could further ask any question, Komikai jumped over him and warned how she didn't want to hear about it from others. Her firm look with the angrier face scared him, and he apologized for his question. The girl was still above him, which was too close to ignore for the boy. He was unable to comprehend, but the girl again asked him not to think about minor things while he was with her. She mentioned that she had chosen to be with him, gave him a warning to never forget it, and Kureshi said sorry again. Komikai then said that his body should already be okay, as his fever was gone, and decided to rest there for a bit longer. She was lying near him, on the same bed, which was so close that Kureshi reminded her about it. But the girl teases him by repeating the questions. He tried to establish how she was very close, but she smashed his face, mentioning how Kureshi was not convincing with those eyes. Komikai then tickled his nose, and considering he was fine, decided to go home after enough slacking. Kureshi thanked her for it, and inquired about school, but since it had already started, she decided not to go and asked Kureshi to take care of him. After she left, the boy was sitting on his bed, thinking how she had pleased him again, and at that very time, his sister returned, inquiring about the beautiful woman who had brought him home. The teacher asked why Komikai was also absent, and someone told how she was escorting Kurehashi and couldn't go back to school. It was a bright day. When the teacher was teaching the class about predicates and indicators, Kurehashi considered it a miracle. As Komikai was attending all the classes up to the 4th period of Friday, in that week after the class was over, the lunch break started. He opened his tiffin and looked at the girl. Komikai stood up, looked at him with a strong gaze and left the class. The other students started gossiping about how she was scary, wondered where she was going, and considered that they would die if they got involved with her. Someone even asked who would dare to be with that girl. With that scary aura, and Kurehashi was hearing all those chit-chats. When the afternoon class started after the break, the teacher continued to teach from where he left previously. Kurehashi noticed that Komikai didn't return after break and started thinking about the places where she might go while the teacher was reviewing some questions. Kurehashi was remembering the golden eyes of Komikai and wondered if she wanted to call him for slacking off again. But he felt horrible after realizing how he actually wanted to be invited for skipping classes. The teacher noticed him, drowning in another world of thoughts, and yelled at him, asking if he wanted a remedial class again. The boy came back to reality, started apologizing to his teacher with a trembling voice, and felt embarrassment. He was tired after the long day of classes, was heading down on his desk, but suddenly his phone rang. It was unusual, which made him wonder if his mom contacted him for some errands or other, but to his surprise, it was Komikai. She had sent a video of her holding a donut, and it made him instantly nervous, making other students curious. There was also a link attached which opened a location, and Kurehashi wondered if the girl wanted him to skip the 6th class to go there. He didn't want to go, typed a rejection message, but canceled it and started running in a rush. Since the next period was biology, he thought to do that somehow and went to meet that girl, despite considering himself a fool. When he reached the given place, Komikai was happy to see him, but he was looking tired and broken. Kurehashi inquired about the image he had seen earlier, and the girl gave him a packet containing 6 donuts, asking him to pick whatever he liked. He didn't mean it, but was happy to have some tasty treat. As the scent was also awesome, and he took the strawberry flavor, Komikai asked if he also liked that flavor, mentioning how she also liked it. But Kurehashi felt nervous and started stating how it was a flavor he hadn't tasted before. The girl started teasing him when he tried hard to prove his statement, and she suggested he eat it first. Kurehashi didn't understand what was so interesting about the event, but decided to take it, considering how he would not be able to understand her ever. It was surprising that Komikai had skipped classes just for some donuts, so Kurehashi wondered if she could not do that after class ended, and didn't understand why he followed her. While he was pondering all that, Komikai told him that it was her favorite place, as there were not many people, making the place peaceful and the breeze felt good. She also told him that it was a secret she told someone for the first time and asked to keep it like that. Her firm look freaked him again, but it was his first time someone telling him something secretive. Suddenly, the girl took back the food, asked if it was the reason he came there, and then Kurehashi started screaming in confusion. Komikai offered him the food, just like someone calling their pets to eat, and looked at him with admiration. They started doing the stuff together, where Komikai dominated, making Kurehashi ask for time to answer. After it happened, Komikai thanked him, mentioning how it was a good breather, and the boy agreed with a tired voice. Suddenly she stated how the biology class of that day was very hard, that she was sick of just preparing. Kurehashi was shocked to hear that the girl was even preparing. While he did none and asked if it was really so hard, Komikai didn't answer, just wished him good luck, and Kurehashi just kept asking her to wait for him. After that moment, Komikai was swinging a stone with all her might. While Kurehashi was busy looking at her body, the stone reached the other side of the river, which made Kurehashi scream in shock, and Komikai said it was his turn next. The boy wondered if he was being provoked, but since he would not know it without trying, took a stone from the ground. As he was a guy, he didn't want to lose to a girl, and threw the stone with all his power, but it landed on the midway. On the water, he didn't stop there, repeatedly throwing stones, only to fail each turn. Continuously 3 times in a row, Komikai sarcastically said that he was not doing it in the right way and got ready to do it again. She picked a stone, suggesting a change in the rule, and stated that only the ones that made it to the other side of the river will get counted. Kurehashi noticed how the girl broke a rock and wondered if he could also do the same following her pattern, but he failed again, when his stone didn't fly far. After his failed attempts, Komikai suggested they go to the convenience store and start running. Kureshi could not keep up with the speed she had and asked her to wait so that he could at least catch his breath while Komikai was hurrying. Unfortunately, she fell on the ground so hard, almost revealing her underwear. Kureshi asked if she was injured. She said no, but it was hurting so much, and he noticed her finger bleeding. The girl said it was fine, blowing the wound, but Kureshi said she can't do that, and started searching for a band-aid in his backpack. Komikai said it was fine, but he found it and asked her to use it while she responded that Kureshi was overreacting, even though she took it. It was hard for her to put it in the right place. After a moment of struggle, Kureshi asked if he could help her, feeling the hardship of putting it by herself, and she didn't reject it. Komikai spreaded her hand, asking him to do it, and the boy became so nervous to see her beautiful hands, but somehow managed to put it on after finally finishing the nerve-wracking experiment. Started breathing heavily, and Komikai said that it was nicely done and was not hard to move at all. Kureshi was happy to see that the girl was not angry and mentioned how he had practiced putting a band-aid on his sister, who often gets injured in her club activities. He also mentioned how he also used to get injured himself, and that was why he used to always carry a bandage. Komikai was looking at the bandage, and when Kureshi called her, she said that she would not go to the convenience store anymore and agreed to consider the game to be a tie. It was a relief for Kureyoshi that he was saved, and the two parted their ways. Komikai was taking a bath in the tub while thinking about how Kureyoshi had put the band-aid on and suddenly realized that she had forgotten that it would peel off if get wet. She was blushing and wondered if she should make Kureyoshi put it on again the next day. On the other hand, in his home, the sister yelled at Kureyoshi that she would also catch a cold, directing him to stay in his room. She mentioned her upcoming game, and Kureshi apologized for sneezing near her, still confused about how it got that started. It was a school day when the students were announced about a marathon happening in the second period. The teacher said that they could walk or rest while taking the route. Kureshi noticed Komikai tying her hair up. He said that it was surprising to see her there, but the girl mentioned how she would have to take a supplementary lesson if she slacked on the marathon, which she didn't want to do. The hot weather had made it worse since it was getting hotter lately, and Komikai asked the boy to follow her. After that, the race had begun, and Komikai started running so fast that everyone was left behind. Kureshi could not keep up with her speed, wondered how she had managed it, but he had to follow her, and he passed the other students somehow. After the rush, he was feeling tired, but Komikai was not slowing down at all, but suddenly he noticed her taking a wrong turn. Kureshi decided to tell her about it, but he had already lost her and yelled. He started searching for her and found her gulping water from a tap, which he kept looking at with admiration and lust. Komikai asked why don't he also drink it, which was a heavenly feeling for him, and Kureyoshi started drinking it like a maniac while he was enjoying the freshness. Komikai approached him from behind and mentioned how he was also guilty from that point. After that, the two were sitting under a tree when Kureyoshi asked if she knew the right way all along, else she won't go in that park, and mentioned how he thought that she got lost. The girl explained how she didn't like the heat, and Kureshi suggested that she should have run slower in that case. He was also worried that the school authority would find them, as it was close to the course, but before answering, she squeezed his face, asking him to sit down. The students were passing by, and the sound made Kureshi wonder if it was their teacher, but she said that they would get caught if he behaved carelessly. After the squeezing, Kureshi didn't have any energy left, called her timid, and the girl said sorry, mentioning how she didn't mind as it was fun. She suggested going to the race, but Kureshi was already tired, and when they went there, everyone had already finished the course. The students were surprised that Komikai had finished last, remembering how she was the first halfway through the race, and they couldn't remember passing her. Someone said that it would be rare for her to finish the course, and hearing all the gossip. Kureshi considered himself lucky, as he also did the same thing as Komikai, but no one talked about him. Komikai changed her dress after finishing the race, announced that slacking off was done for that day, and got ready to go home. Kureshi was shocked, asked if she would really cut the 2 hours they left, and she passed by mentioning how tired she was. He put his head on the desk, since he was also tired, but a student kept watching him, wondering how he could talk normally with Komikai. Komikai was in the first rank of the merit list, and a girl kept wondering how wonderful a person she is. She, the beauty and sharp look of Komikai, remembered how she was hard to approach. While standing in the noisy crowd, she seemed to have a deep crush on Komikai, as she started getting butterflies when she got a chance to look at her. When Komikai asked her to move aside, The girl kept looking at Komukai and remembered how she used to watch her even if they were never in the same class. The girl knew everything. Komukai liked coffee, sweet things, and not wearing rings in summer. Komukai didn't interact with other people even outside the class. But suddenly she noticed her talking with a boy and remembered the scene where Komukai and Kureshi were talking. The girl was watching them from behind and was surprised to see Kureishi interacting with her normally. She had also noticed them coming out from the park on marathon day and understood what it could mean, a planned man beside a goddess-like girl. Recently Komukai was seen talking with him, but since the two sit next to each other, the girl didn't think about it much. While she was watching the class, a teacher announced the class to be a self-study period. As the class teacher was not present, Komukai appeared from nowhere and asked the girl to let her pass through. She was nervous to meet her idol right in front of her and started jumping in joy, making Komukai confused. In the class, Kureishi was enjoying doing his assignment, as it was easy and no one was beside him. Komukai messaged him, asking if the class really had become self-study and suggested slacking off, but he didn't want to, until she said that there was something she wanted to confirm. Kureishi was nervous, wondering what was the concerning message about, and quietly left the room. The girl admired Komukai, noticed him running, and was not ready to consider it as a mere coincidence, and wondered if the two were already in a romantic relationship. She couldn't concentrate on her studies, imagining the assumed couple kissing, and said that those types of things didn't even happen in manga. After some moments of thought, the girl decided to do something and stood up. On the other hand, Komukai was sitting on the stairs and mentioned how she thought that no one could possibly resist their curiosity after that kind of message, and she asked him to follow her to know about it. The other girl was keeping an eye on the couple and decided to catch them remembering an embarrassing situation. Kureishi and Komukai were moving together, and the girl wondered where they were going while secretly following them across the corridor. She noticed that Komukai pulled the guy into a place which she didn't know existed and looked to watch what they were doing there. To her shock, she found no one there and got confused about where they vanished, and tried to remember the room correctly. Komukai shut Kurashi's mouth by putting her hands on it and held his hand towards the back, and it was not on purpose. The other girl, who was trying to find the couple, was heartbroken and started crying about why it was not her in their place. Harashi and Komukai heard it, and Komukai approached her asking what she meant. The girl was terrified to see Komukai standing behind her, but when Komukai said that she was still not in that kind of relationship with Kurashi, it calmed the girl down. After a second, the girl became so happy, but Komukai asked her to go back first, and Kureishi kept looking at his classmate until the two shared a rival gaze. Komukai asked him not to mind that, but he inquired why they had come there, but Komukai only stated how she was a sinful person, further confusing Kureishi. It was another day of class. When the teacher announced the summer break after the semester, Kureishi noticed the upset face of Komukai and wondered if she was not looking for the vacation, but decided not to meddle in that situation. On a bright, hot day, he was walking in the town after finishing his errand and relaxed that it went faster. It had been a while since he had been in the town, so he decided to stop by a bookstore and eat lunch after that. Suddenly, a girl gave him a coupon, asking if he was alone, and inquired if he would like to have lunch. He was shocked to see the cuteness and confirmed that he was alone, and the girl mentioned their offer of providing lunch at 1,000 yuan in order to establish their opening. The girl clarified how there would not be any additional fees or anything, and asked him not to worry. When the two reached the restaurant, the other waitress referred to the girl as master and welcomed Kureishi as well. The master waitress thanked him for coming and asked a girl called Yayoi to guide him. Kureishi was surprised with the treatment, but when Yayoi welcomed him, he was more shocked than ever, as the girl was actually Komukai. She was also surprised to see her classmate there and screamed. After a moment, they were sitting on a sofa while the head waitress was facing the two and expected them to sit closer. Komukai was facing the ground, but the other waitress kept talking about how it was a coincidence to get her classmate as a customer and introduced herself as her sister. Komukai Satsuki, she was also the owner and manager of that place, and thanked him for taking care of her sister. Kureishi was shocked to realize how the event turned out to be like a manga, realized how the two sisters looked completely different, and Komukai was still sitting in a nervous look. Kureishi then took the menu, asking about the recommended food. When Satsuki mentioned omelette rice with love topping, he ordered that Komukai took the order and was to leave, but her sister stopped her, asking if she had forgotten something about the love topping. The girl resisted mentioning how she can't do it, but as the owner of the place, she ordered her to deliver the food with lots of love, which Komukai couldn't disobey. After Komukai left, her sister expressed how she was grateful to him for coming to the restaurant. She started explaining how she recommended Komukai to work there, mentioned how she was a shy girl, and wanted her little sister not to get stuck in the home for the whole vacation. Satsuki also mentioned how her university was on break, and she also had offered her sister to watch over studies whenever time allowed. Kureshi was surprised to know that the lady was in university, and she said how she couldn't wait for graduation to start her business. Kureshi understood that Komukai got tuition from her elder sister, which resulted in the good grades even after slacking off, and Satsuki was busy looking at him with admiration. Suddenly she stood up, stating how she was relieved to know about her sister's good high school life and asked him to take off Komukai before leaving. Kureshi noticed the two sisters exchanging looks, wondered about the difference they had, and the elder said that she would leave the rest on her younger sister's hand. Komukai didn't have any idea what Satsuki said while she was carrying the food, but Kureshi was busy admiring the mutual respect between the sisters. Eventually his attention was shifted to their beauty, but when Komukai served the food he screamed. After that she sat near him while he was eating, and Kureshi commented how he thought that Komukai had a good sister. This statement made Komukai nervous. She asked what they talked about, but he confirmed that it was only about school, not something weird. It was a great relief for her, then told how her sister opened a business despite being a college student. Even though she still had to study, and mentioned how her sister worries about others, suddenly her mood changed while talking. She yelled at Kureshi, asking him to eat quickly. But Satsuki noticed and asked her to mind her manners. She then asked if Komukai had forgotten the most important thing and asked her to express it clearly. While holding a tomato ketchup, Komukai stood up and mentioned that she would do it only as a part of work, not in her own will. Kureshi noticed how she was disgusted, so he said that she didn't need to force herself, but her sister was expecting her, so Komukai tried to do it somehow. Controlling her emotions, she was thinking about what she should draw, but Kureshi was fine with anything. And then she started drawing something over his rice, which turned out to be a mess. Not knowing what she should do next, she said sorry with tears in her eyes and promised to make it again. Kureshi could not see her crying, got nervous about his next move, and after a moment of pause, jumped into eating it, mentioning how he likes sweets after all. The situation was awkward, but when Komukai noticed how Kureshi's mouth was full of ketchup, she told it with a smile. After having his lunch, Kureshi thanked them, started leaving the restaurant, and suddenly someone started calling him from behind. It was Satsuki, who was glad to catch up with him and asked if he was free that Saturday. Kureshi was stunned with the flow, considering if she wanted to go out with him, and said that he didn't have any plans. Satsuki took out a coupon, thanking him for that day, but it was too much for Kureshi, as she had already treated him to a meal. The girl mentioned that she couldn't attend the event, and since she had 2 tickets, asked Kureshi to take someone with him. The boy was a loner, had no idea whom to take, and considered it pretty harsh, but also felt bad to waste it. Satsuki winked at him, mentioning how Komukai Yoi would be free that day, and requested not to tell her sister. Kureshi agreed to consider it, thinking she had misunderstood their relationship. On the day of the event, Kureshi was getting ready, but his sister yelled at him, telling how his clothes were not up to the mark. She couldn't believe that Kureshi was really going to meet Komukai in an event with that appearance, and asked if it was a lie, but he swore. His sister then suggested going in some decent clothes, mentioning how she would also get embarrassed meeting a guy wearing those types of clothes. Kureshi was also shocked at how Komukai agreed so easily, whereas he thought that she would decline it. They had planned to meet up at 6, near the Torii Gate, and Kureshi changed his clothes to a hoodie. He was glad to get saved and thankful to Satsuki, and left home. In the summer event, he was waiting for Komukai, wondering since when he didn't attend such an event, and remembered his last time being in middle school, near the Torii. He was looking for Komukai, and suddenly noticed her, a beautiful woman wearing a traditional Japanese dress. He was stunned by her beauty, and she informed him that she was late due to her slipper, which made it hard to move. Kureshi handed her the ticket, and she mentioned how she was excited to enjoy it, thanked him, and suggested going to the event spot. People were staring at her, which was hurtful, but ignoring all the gaze. The two went to some shops, offering shooting, eating games, and many more. Kureshi noticed how happy Komukai was, felt glad for inviting her, and relaxed with her. Suddenly she suggested going back, as they had already had their fun with the stalls, and showed him the time. Kuroshi asked where she wanted to go, but she ordered only to follow her, started moving, and Kuroshi was behind her, asking her to wait. After some time of walking, the two reached a jungle, which was already dark, and Kuroshi inquired about her intention. Komukai said that they were there to make memories, but it was strange for him to be alone with a woman in a deserted place, dark and with a lot of trees, making memories. He was embarrassed to think about doing it, hid his face, and asked if she wanted to do something which his heart was not yet ready for. Komukai didn't answer and went towards a bench, and said that was their destination. She said that her sister had told her about that place before, and was glad to be there before it had started. Kuroshi didn't know what was about to start, but the girl sat there and asked him to sit. After taking his seat, Kuroshi asked what would start, and if she really meant to do that there. Komukai said that it was the best place for it, wished he would be fine with that, and was excited that it was coming. Suddenly the sky was brightened with fireworks, which shocked him for a moment, and Komukai asked what he thought about her intention to bring him there. Even though Kuroshi was trembling in embarrassment, he tried to play innocent. Asking what she meant, Komukai asked him to look at her and whispered in his ear, asking if he thought that she would do those kinds of things. After the question, there was nothing to hide, but Kuroshi was unable to utter anything. Almost freeze, Komukai said that she had already sent it to you, which he didn't understand at first, but when he looked at his phone, he found a selfie where Kuroshi was about to kiss. While she was rejecting it, he was distraught to see it. While Komukai said that she was wondering what he was thinking at that moment as he was even coming close to her, Kuroshi asked with a trembling voice why she took a photo, but she mentioned how her sister was amused by him and made a fuss making her go out with him. She said that if she sent her that photo, it would be enough proof, and teasingly she asked if Kuroshi had made memories. Kuroshi realized that he had made a vague view of fireworks and a traumatic image was captured, and it was how his summer ended. The day starts with Komukai praying at a temple, and after getting to the school, she wished good morning to Kuroshi. It was the beginning of the new term, and when he noticed Komukai coming early, he considered it to be a new beginning too. The teacher announced about changing the seats, which was the custom of the school, and mentioned how the students with poor eyesight and with willingness to focus on lessons would be prioritized for the front row. As for the rest, she asked everyone to draw sheets from a box, suggesting a lottery system. The teacher had already written the sitting arrangement on the board, assigned one number for each seat, and asked the students to draw their number and tell her. After setting the rules, she asked who would want to sit in the first row, and some enthusiastic students raised their hands. Kuroshi had completely forgotten about it and predicted that it would be the last time to be Komukai's seatmate. The girl noticed his gaze, asked what he was thinking about, and inquired why he didn't raise his hand despite being a diligent type. Kuroshi said the first row was a little harsh and asked where she wanted to sit. The teacher had finished allotting seats for the first row and announced the lottery. Komukai stood up, told Kuroshi how her target was 30, and Kuroshi was amazed with her spirit. On the board, the seat number 30 was mentioned with the seat number 25, which makes the two seatmates. Everyone looked at her while she moved to the front, and Kuroshi kept looking at her in shock. Komukai opened her ticket, which had 30 written on it, and Kuroshi was surprised to see how she got what she always wanted. The students started talking about how she rightfully deserved that seat, mentioning her different aura, and it was actually her current seat as well. It was now the turn for other students and everyone made a queue, while Kuroshi kept thinking how the current arrangement was fine enough, but was disturbed by people who were trying to snatch their chances to go fast. Kuroshi remembered how he was distracted by Komukai in his previous semester, considered it enough, but he could not stop thinking about skipping classes with her. While he was busy thinking about all that, someone yelled at him to hurry up, and it was Kato, the girl who was previously spying on them. The two exchanged a look, and the girl screamed that she would not let Kuroshi get that seat, but he didn't understand anything. When he looked at the seats, he noticed that only 2 seats were left, including the one he used to seat, that is 25. Meanwhile, Kato looked at Komukai, wondering if they didn't know that the best should be saved for the last. She was thinking about how the existence of Komukai was a miracle itself, and started imagining how it would feel to be her seatmate, and remembered all her hard work and luck she had been saving for it. While she was busy daydreaming and got his previous seat, which was 25, the event shattered the heart of Kato, and she tried to complain, mentioning how she had lined up first. The teacher was firm enough to reject it and asked her to give up and assigned her the remaining number, 17. After the lottery had finished, the teacher asked everyone to sit on their new seats, and everyone started relocating. Hiroshi thought about his first reaction when he saw his seat number, but got mesmerized by the beauty of Komukai when he reached his seat. The girl asked him to decide something for himself. He remembered how a guy begged him to exchange seats in the previous term, and that's how he ended up being Komukai's seatmate. Was surprised that Komukai still remembered the incident. She said it was obvious, but stopped explaining further, and mentioned how it would be easy for her to invite him to slack off in that semester too. Kurishi was nervous, thinking how he would be troubled by that, but got stuck when Komukai heard and noted his words. She mentioned how he didn't dislike to slack off, but he tried to explain how it was not the case. Komukai then mentioned how it was her lucky day, and when asked about the reason, she mentioned about the perks of waking up early while remembering the temple, and wished him best regards for the semester. On a regular school morning, a teacher suddenly yelled at Komukai, mentioning how he had been telling her about the length of her skirt, which was too short. Komukai apologized and promised to take care of it later, but the teacher had already heard that excuse before. Everyone wondered who was already angry in the morning, and went to see it. Komukai said that it was longer than before, but the teacher didn't agree, as it still looked the same, while arguing. Her face was scary, and she asked if the teacher wanted to measure it. And inquired if they remembered the previous length. Komukai fearlessly kept mentioning about measuring it, but the teacher was not yet ready, while the other students were excited to see what the teacher would do. Komukai said that, if the teacher didn't want to measure, it was not her problem, and started leaving. The teacher was angry with her behavior, yelled and said that they were not done. Kureshi also noticed that and considered it scary, but the teacher asked his name, year in class, without any clue of what was happening, told his data while still trembling in fear. The teacher said that his hair was too long, which was hiding his eyes, and wrote a note to cut his hair short, and ordered to take the signature after fixing it. Kureshi was upset and considered it unreasonable because it had never been a problem before. On the other hand, Komukai was eating some fries outside and thinking about how the teacher, Nishitani, was so annoying. She remembered how she had fixed the length by 1 centimeter last time. That day she didn't have any plan to skip classes, but the teacher was driving him crazy, and hence she slacked off. When she put her hands on her bag, she found no money and tried to hide her face from the waiter. In the class, a teacher was busy teaching, but Kureshi was thinking about his hair, which he would need to shorten. Suddenly he noticed that Komukai had already left, remembered how she was angry earlier, and panicked after imagining her eyes. He opened his diary and considered it troublesome and outdated to get a signature after fixing the hair. He kept thinking about Komukai getting asked for a signature too. On the other hand, a guy in the Joker outfit asked if Komukai was alone. While she was busy on her phone, he offered to play with her, which was annoying, and she mentioned waiting for someone. The Joker said that it was a lie, insisted playing again. Considering that a rare opportunity and mentioned about his car to go out, he almost touched her shoulder, which infuriated her, and she warned to call the police. The Joker laughed at it, citing how he only asked to play, and mentioned about her being in a restaurant wearing a uniform. On a weekday morning, suddenly Kureshi reached that place, and the Joker asked what he wanted, and he replied how he was there to meet Komukai. The Joker was upset to know that the girl had a partner, and Kureshi was relieved to get in at the right time. Komukai asked what's up with him and inquired why he skipped class, despite being a serious student. Kureshi showed her the notebook with a remark and said that since her name was not in there, she would not need to report it, even after fixing the length. He mentioned how she was exempted, but she said that their eyes were on her from the first term, showed him a notebook full of remarks, and mentioned how the teacher had already reported it to the homeroom teacher. All these rules were frustrating, and Kureshi said that no one would do it, but she inquired why Kureshi was there too. He said how the teacher said that his bangs were long enough, and ordered to cut it so that it wouldn't hide his face. Komukai asked why he didn't cut that, which was unexpected as he thought that she would support her. She further inquired if there was a reason for him not to cut it, and he said how he loves covering his eyes so that no one misunderstood him because of his eyes. Komukai looked at him for a moment and started laughing, and said that it was funny how he was being conscious about others' opinions. Kureshi didn't understand what was funny in that scenario, but she asked if it was not more important than her skirts, and asked why he was thinking about her problem more. He tried to explain it, but she cut his sentence in the middle and asked if he was thinking if she should lengthen the skirt or stay that way. Kureshi declined, stated how he didn't care either way, and mentioned seeing her arguing with the teacher by coincidence. He said that the way the teacher talked with her in front of everyone worried him, and Komukai suddenly stood up and left when he asked if something was wrong. She mentioned going to the toilet, and she started thinking about his words in front of the big toilet mirror. After she returned, thanked him for waiting, and gave a coffee can to Kurashi. She said that it was her treat, and when asked about the reason, she asked him to take it as a reward for slacking off voluntarily, but he screamed, mentioning how it was not his plan. He inquired about what they should do after that, suggesting going back to school, but Komikai proposed to go to cut his hair.